Hi, I'm Ollie Bell, a workplace wellbeing specialist. And as I say that, I cringe a little bit because I think to myself, what is a specialist and why do I think I'm one? And I suppose that question is what's led me to discuss this topic, which is imposter syndrome. And I want to start by saying that what I'm going to talk about are my experiences, and I come from a position of privilege. I've faced few difficulties in my life because of my background, because of my beliefs or my appearance. And I don't want to pretend that what I'm about to discuss is built upon that. But I do want to talk about imposter syndrome, and I'm conscious that what I believe isn't the opinion of others, and that my techniques, which I apply to myself, won't work for everyone, and that's fine. But if one person takes something from this, then I'm happy. I think I've recently become more aware of imposter syndrome and even more aware that I'm not alone, probably as a result of me coming close to finishing my PhD, which I've spent 6 years putting together, and toward the end stages had to defend my thesis. And defending your thesis means that you sit in front of two experts who scrutinise what you did, why you did it, and how you did it. I've also recently joined a company with people who are very quick thinking, are very intelligent, are open to challenging conversations. And both of those experiences have led me to that famous Einstein quote, which said, "The more I learn, the more I realise how much I don't know." And I feel like that to me at the moment is becoming more and more real. I think to me, imposter syndrome is about a lack of confidence in my ability to perform in situations. I think it's self-doubt or convincing myself that I'll be judged about what I say. And I don't think I'm alone with these thoughts. I've had more and more conversations with people when I've shared these opinions with people who say that they have the same experiences. And I think one that's most poignant quite recently was somebody who discussed how they felt their accent would be judged, and that they'd be worried about their perception of their intelligence and how they would contribute to a conversation simply because of the way that they spoke. And I don't think imposter syndrome is a new thing. I think it's probably been part of our society for generations. I'm of the opinion that we once lived in a world where only those who were educated succeeded. And if you succeeded, it meant that you held power. And I think we're suffering from the hangovers of those years, and the hangovers where weakness and vulnerabilities were problematic for people. I think to be weak meant that you couldn't succeed. You always had to appear strong. And I know that many grandparents, mine particularly, still live by these mantras, but I'm hoping that we're coming out of these times. And I'm starting to see more and more people feeling confident to be their true selves and to show others the vulnerabilities. Great thinkers like Brené Brown, if anybody's ever come across Brené, discuss why vulnerabilities is such an important topic, but we've probably still a long way to go. In my opinion, vulnerabilities are what make us human. We're not AI. We don't know the right answer all the time, and I think that's a good thing. I think that means that we can explore and experiment with new ideas. And I think, and I'm not an expert, that's something that AI can't do. If we can experiment some of our thoughts and our feelings without the fear of being judged, it might lead to creativity. And creativity often leads to advancements in human evolution, so it's a good thing. To be weak, to be vulnerable is a good thing. And I often try and convince people in the workplace this because, in my opinion, it's helps what forms relationships. We don't trust robots, we don't trust AI. That's why we get really frustrated at automatic telephone services. But we do trust human beings. And the easiest way to suggest to somebody, to demonstrate to somebody that we're human, is by showing that we're vulnerable. Because humans look after vulnerable people. And if you don't believe me, ask any parent or any pet lover or pet owner who will tell you that they have as much love for their smaller, less powerful child or furry friend, and they want to look after those people in their lives. I think, in my opinion, that's where imposter syndrome comes from. But for me, I've come across certain techniques which help me to overcome my imposter syndrome. I tend to absorb and learn lessons that I've come across through books or podcasts that really stick with me. And one that really stuck with me quite a while ago was that you care a lot less about what other people think of you when you realise how seldom they do. And when I was writing this, I tried to find the owner of that quote, and it's been said by many times, so I'm not going to attempt to assign that to somebody. But for me, that means that people rarely think negatively of me, probably because I rarely think negatively of other people. In fact, if I spoke to other people the way that I speak to myself, I probably have no friends or family or loved ones. And I think that's really important to try and recognise and remember, because it can help us change the way of which we think about ourselves. And I do this by simply identifying those negative thoughts or comments that I make to myself. So, for example, every time that I drop something or I say something and I think to myself, you idiot, why did you do that? I label that negative thought and I say to myself that that's something that I should stop doing. And I also try and challenge those thoughts. So if I'm thinking things like, people think you're probably an idiot, I'll challenge myself by, well, what is the evidence to support that? The same way as which if we were in a court of law, a juror would do the same, that you would be asked to provide evidence to support your theories. I think other practical examples include, for me, things like not worrying about things that haven't happened yet. And this kind of aligns to Stoicism and Stoic philosophy, which was made known through the ancient Greeks. And I'm not an expert, but I'd highly recommend the book by Adrian Holiday, who's got a few books by Adrian Holiday. And within those books and within these lessons, there's something that I taught, which is there's certain things that we can control in life and there are others that we can't. The things that we can't control are the future. The things that we can control are us. Our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviour. So if I can't control what's going to happen in the future, should I necessarily be worried about it? If I can't control other people's opinions of me, then should I really be worried about it? And I think a real nice practical example of how this works is, I remember watching the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance, on Netflix. And somebody asked Michael before he took a free throw if he was ever worried about missing. And he said, why would I ever be worried about doing something that's not happened yet? So I think that, for me, reinforces how we can practically apply sometimes not necessarily worrying about others or worrying about things that might happen in the future. But I want to go back to vulnerabilities and talking about my vulnerabilities and explaining how sometimes I experience those. I think it's okay to sometimes admit that we don't know the right answer. We don't know everything. We shouldn't pretend that we do. So going back to my introduction as a specialist, I think a specialist doesn't mean you know everything. I think a specialist probably means that you want to learn more things. I think we don't know everything because we acquire knowledge through learning, and if we've not been taught something, then how are we expected to know it? And to be honest, I sometimes think that not knowing the answer is often really quite useful. It can help me personally to try and find the answer, which I find really stimulating and exciting. And I think actually pretending to know the answer can do more harm. I think it's perfectly okay to say I don't know, but it's really important to follow up with, but I'll find out.